conservatorship. What the hell is this, Anuj? What the hell is conservatorship, bro? What is going on here? So, conservatorship. You've probably heard this conservatorship. I don't know how to say it. Conservatorship. I should have probably looked this up. Conservatorship, for those of you that don't know, has been a very trending topic. You may have heard this with celebrities like Britney Spears and Amanda Bynes. We're going to talk about both of them today. So, the technical definition of conservatorship, which I had no idea, this even existed until like 4 weeks ago when I saw a headline about Britney Spears, and I was like, interesting. Maybe I should do it for a show. Here we are. So, the technical definition of conservatorship is basically appointing an advisor, guardian, or mentor to the person, to a person that is not stable enough mentally, and you are able to manage and that conservator is able to manage their finances, their medical decisions, basically make like every legal decision needed for them. And this has been a term that has been thrown around a lot because of the Britney Spears situation, and a situation that's been going on with a lot of other celebrities as well. We're going to talk about Britney Spears and Amanda Bynes in particular. So if you haven't heard about what's going on with Britney Spears, which if you're not a pop culture fiend, you probably haven't. So let me educate you on what's happening. Let's go through a timeline, and I'll kind of explain conservatorship and how it's, sort of affected her life and all of these things, but it'll become pretty evidently clear very quickly. So what happened? Britney Spears, way back in 2007, had some hit songs. She was financially pretty successful. She was doing really well. She was touring. She had that song Toxic. Not my type, but certainly some people's types as well. And financially, she was doing great. She had a husband. She had a couple kids. She was chilling. But personally and mental health wise, she was kind of going through a rough patch, right? She had a lot of erratic behavior. She eventually was divorcing her husband at the time, and she also lost custody because of her kids, because the court deemed that she wasn't mentally in the sort of space to be able to have custody of children. There was also some public incidents that raised eyebrows, so it led the case to eventually go to the court. There's a couple psychiatric hospital visits as well. Long story short, in 2008, she was admitted to psychiatric care multiple times, and that led the judges to eventually make conservatorship for Britney Spears temporary. And the conservator was her father, Jamie Spears. And eventually that conservatorship basically got made permanent as they saw that her behavior wasn't improving, and her finances, legal decisions, medical decisions, all of that stuff was under her father's control. Jamie Spears was her father, basically her financial advisor, her doctor. Every single decision that he made, she had to follow because legally he had the right to do so. So the conservator basically has this major life power, has this power over major personal life choices, and it's typically used for people who've been in a lot of mental health, like who have had a lot of mental trauma or going through a really rough patch in life and need that trusted sort of guidance in their life. And Britney Spears kind of needed that. So Jamie Spears, who's her father, had power over those personal life decisions as well, because he was able to decide like when Britney can go see her kids, could Britney Spears remarry, all of that, and that's problematic. And in addition to those problems, Britney Spears' dad was also an abusive conservator, because he basically forced her to go on tour, made her take birth control, didn't let her have sex, didn't let her see guys, didn't let her get married, bugged her bedroom with cameras, which are major privacy violations. Basically, Britney Spears had no choices in her life. Every single decision was led on by her dad, and it was pretty abusive. And it even, like, according to New York Times court records, led to the point where Britney Spears couldn't even pick a color for her kitchen cabinet without having to consult her father, who was her conservator, because he had that much power. But during this time, Britney Spears, this was all going on behind the scenes and didn't really get revealed until a couple of years ago when the case went to court. But Britney Spears and the public had basically rehabilitated her image to the point where everyone was like, oh, she's back. Like, she's the golden girl again of music. She'd gone on tour a lot of times, which, we found out was forced by her father. But she had basically taken up residency in Vegas, released a bunch of songs, and she looked great publicly. But her dad and her got into this legal abusive relationship, because back when Britney was going through a rough patch, he gained power and he gained control of her finances and all of her decisions. And so there was a weird power dynamic here. And back in 2019, her father started to get sick, and so he wanted to step down from the conservatorship for health reasons. And that's when this whole thing basically got brought to the court. because they needed to decide like who was going to be the next conservator and all of these things. And eventually they picked a financial advisor who was a temporary one. And the whole thing got brought to court. A lot of evidence was brought up, and it eventually ended with Britney Spears getting her freedom. So Free Britney ended up working, and so she ended up leaving the conservatorship after about 13 years, and she can now live her own life and make her own decisions, which is great because mentally she's in a much better place, and she has gone through a lot of that stuff. Britney has also gone on the record multiple times and spoken about the abuse that has taken place in the conservatorship and all of these things that have gone on. And there could potentially also be other legal repercussions with conservator abuse and all of these things that, Jamie Spears abused the privileges that he had as a conservator, and that could potentially go to court as well. So there's more legal battles to come with Jamie and Britney potentially, which I will keep you updated on if anything happens. But conservator-wise, Jamie Spears abused his privileges with Britney Spears. But then you have Amanda Bynes, who's another conservator case. Amanda Bynes was a child actress, and she was absolutely killing it. She was dominating the industry. She was huge in the 90s, and she was in a lot of movies in the 2000s as well. And her last movie that she starred in was Easy A. But similar to Britney Spears, she was going through a mental rough patch. She had a lot of problems, and there was a couple public outbursts as well, including like setting fire to her parents' driveway and all of these things. It's a lot of crazy stuff. And eventually her parents, similar to Britney, ended up taking control over her finances, her medical decisions, and kind of everything that Jamie Spears had control of as well. And Amanda was posting a lot on social media during this time, because this was kind of the social media era, and she was posting a lot during this period where her parents had taken control. And she basically said that her father had like microchipped her and sexually assaulted her. A lot of strong allegations were brought to the forefront. It turns out that later, which is like right now here in 2020, 2021, when this case got brought to court, she later denied this and said that she was going through it mentally and was dealing with substance abuse in regards to alcohol and various other drugs as well. So that was going on. But her mother held control, and luckily for Amanda, her parents didn't abuse their power as conservators at all. They allowed her the chance to get better, used a lot of her money that she had gained as a child actor for her treatment and all of these things. She worked with her parents and her team, who were her conservators, to make sure that she was making financial decisions and ready to live life on her own, be independent, all of these things. It ended up working out really, really well. And so all is well. And eventually she was released from her conservatorship after both parties agreed, her parents being her conservators and her being like, yo, like I'm good to go, like I will be fine. And so it ended up working out for the two of them. And so there's two sides to the situation when it comes to all of this stuff, right? It isn't like all conservatorships are abusive, like the Britney Spears one, which is the one that mainstream media has talked about extensively, because conservatorships can also work out for the good, like what happened with Amanda Bynes. And now she's going to, have her own business, and she's going to get married and all these things, which is great. But I think the solution to the conservatorship is to really avoid situations that happened with Britney. And how can we do that? You have to run extensive background checks on these people. You can't, like, even if it's a parent or a very trusted person within that person, you have to make sure that the person who is actually getting access to the money is good. Talk to relatives, talk to friends, talk to anybody you can, and any little suspect thing you get, you should question that and maybe move on to someone who is a little bit more trustworthy with the money. That's personally how I feel about this whole conservatorship situation, what the situation is, or what the solution is. But there is a variety of ways to navigate it. And I'm here to say that conservatorship can work. It worked with Amanda Bynes. I presented you a situation that worked. I presented you a situation that didn't work. So it's your decision to come up with, is conservatorship bad? Yes, they have a lot of power, and that can lead to a lot of bad situations if it ends up with the wrong people. But if it ends up with the right people, it can also be really good, because they can end up putting the money where maybe you may need it as a person, and they could help you get through a rough patch in your life. I don't know. It's a lot to chew on, but honestly, I didn't really know what conservatorship was, like I said, and I just really wanted to learn something. So, because I saw it was just a term that was being thrown around like crazy in the pop culture world, and I wanted to like learn really what it meant in all aspects. And I kind of dove into both of these cases with these actresses and realized that there's a lot going on here that we probably don't even know. So, a lot of interesting stuff happening within this particular case of conservatorship. But I'm going to go through this last thing really quickly. I know we're at an hour, so I got to end the show.